For decades, Jeffrey Epstein moved quietly through the highest circles of global power. Billionaires, politicians, royalty scientists, and media figures crossed his path. He wasn't famous for building a company or leading a movement, but for the kind of access most people never get. Access to money, access to influence, access to people whose names shape the world. In 2019, Epstein died in a federal jail cell while awaiting trial. His death officially ruled a suicide, but instead of ending the story, it exposed something far larger. Because Epstein didn't just leave behind unanswered questions, he left behind records, flight logs, contact lists, calendars, court filings, depositions, documents that collectively became known as the Epstein Files. Some of those files were released to the public. Others were heavily redacted. Many remain sealed to this day. Together, they form a partial map of Epstein's world, and the powerful figures who appeared within it. Among the names that drew global attention was Bill Gates, not accused, but undeniably connected. To understand why that matters, you first have to understand who Jeffrey Epstein really was. Epstein did not come from wealth or political power. He did not invent technology or build a major corporation. Yet he owned multiple mansions, a private jet, a private island, and maintained close relationships with some of the most influential people on the planet. He presented himself as a financier, but there was never a clear list of clients. Former associates described him less as a traditional investor and more as a facilitator. Someone who connected powerful people to one another. Epstein didn't sell products. He sold proximity. In 2008, Epstein was arrested on sex-related charges involving minors. What followed shocked many legal experts. Instead of facing federal prison, Epstein received a highly unusual plea deal. He served 13 months in the county jail with extensive work release privileges. More importantly, the deal included protections for unnamed co-conspirators. That clause would later become one of the most criticized aspects of the case. After his release, Epstein was registered as a sex offender. Yet remarkably, his access to elite circles did not end. In some ways, it expanded. This period is critical because many of the documented meetings and associations referenced in the Epstein Files occurred after his conviction. The Epstein Files are not a single document. They are a collection of materials assembled over years. Flight logs from Epstein's private jet, contact books filled with names and numbers, calendars showing meetings, and sworn testimony from civil cases. Being named in these records does not mean a crime was committed, but it does mean there was a documented connection. That distinction matters. Flight logs in particular became a focal point of public interest. Epstein's jet was used frequently, and the logs showed travel involving numerous high-profile individuals. Some acknowledged the flights. Some denied them. Some said they met Epstein socially or professionally but had no knowledge of his crimes. The logs prove movement, not misconduct. But they also prove proximity, and proximity invites scrutiny. This is where Bill Gates enters the story. It is confirmed that Bill Gates met Jeffrey Epstein multiple times. Gates has acknowledged these meetings publicly. It is also confirmed that these interactions took place after Epstein's 2008 conviction. According to Gates, the meetings were related to discussions around philanthropy and global health initiatives. In later interviews, Gates described the association as a mistake, saying that Epstein did not contribute positively to any charitable goals. No criminal allegations have been made against Gates. No charges have been filed. No evidence has surfaced linking him to Epstein's crimes. Still, the timing raised questions. Why would one of the most carefully managed public figures in the world associate with a convicted sex offender? How did Epstein, even after his conviction, continue to secure meetings with people at the highest levels of power? These questions don't require conspiracy theories to exist. They point instead to something more familiar: reputation management, influence, and silence. Investigative journalists have suggested that Epstein understood leverage better than most. He placed himself in environments where reputation mattered deeply and where exposure could be devastating. In those spaces, silence often feels safer than transparency. For years, major media organizations reported on Epstein cautiously, if at all. Editors later acknowledged the reasons: fear of defamation lawsuits, pressure from powerful interests, and legal uncertainty. Stories were softened, names were omitted, coverage was delayed. The result was a public that sensed something was wrong, but didn't fully understand what. When Epstein was arrested again in 2019 on federal charges, the case promised long-awaited answers. That promise ended abruptly with his death. Official investigations concluded suicide, but a series of failures followed. Cameras malfunctioned, guards failed to follow protocol. Oversight broke down at every level. Even those who accept the official ruling agree the system failed catastrophically. With Epstein gone, many questions disappeared with him. Why were certain files sealed? Why did accountability stop at Epstein himself? Why were systems designed to protect the vulnerable so easily bypassed? Today, some names have been released. Some individuals have issued denials. Some, like Bill Gates, have publicly acknowledged their association and expressed regret. Others have remained silent. What remains clear is this: Epstein did not operate in isolation. He survived as long as he did because systems failed, institutions hesitated, and power went largely unchecked. What ultimately makes the Epstein story disturbing isn't just who appears in the files, it's who doesn't. Because when the dust settled, only one person ever went to prison for crimes connected to Epstein's operation. Not the recruiters, not the enablers, not the people who signed checks, arranged meetings, or facilitated travel. Just Epstein himself. And even then, he never faced a federal jury. In the years following his death, civil lawsuits revealed another layer of the story. Victims came forward describing a system that felt organized, repetitive, and protected. Not random encounters, but a structure that functioned smoothly for years without meaningful interruption. Court records showed financial settlements paid quietly, non-disclosure agreements, sealed testimony. Entire portions of depositions were blacked out. Before release, judges approved the sealing of names not because innocence was proven, but because legal thresholds were never crossed in criminal court. This is one of the most uncomfortable truths of the Epstein Files. Silence is not proof of innocence. It is often proof of legal insulation. In 2024, additional documents were unsealed following long legal battles. The public expected revelations. What they got instead was something colder and more unsettling. Confirmation that the system worked exactly as designed. Names appeared, but without context. Connections were acknowledged, but without consequences. Denials were issued, and legally they were enough. No sweeping arrests followed. No domino effect occurred. The moment passed, and that may be the most shocking part of all, because for all the speculation, outrage, and global attention, the Epstein Files did not expose a secret cabal. They exposed something far more ordinary and far more dangerous, a world where power creates distance from accountability. Epstein understood this better than anyone. He didn't need everyone to participate. He only needed enough people to look away. Airplanes flew, meetings happened, money moved, and each individual interaction could be explained away on its own. A meeting here, a flight there, a dinner, a donation, a conversation. Nothing illegal in isolation. But taken together, they formed a pattern, one that thrived in gray areas where responsibility was always someone else's problem. This is why the Epstein Files still matter. Not because they promise a final revelation, but because they reveal how easily truth can be fragmented until it becomes harmless. They show how institutions protect themselves first, how legal systems punish individuals but struggle with networks, how reputations are defended more aggressively than victims. And they show something else that's rarely said out loud. Epstein was not an anomaly, he was a stress test, and the system failed. Today, some files remain sealed. Others may never be released. Time moves on, public attention shifts. New scandals replace old ones. But the questions remain unresolved. Who decided what the public could know? Why did accountability stop where it did? And how many stories never reached a courtroom because silence was cheaper than justice? The Epstein Files don't end with answers. They end with a mirror, reflecting how power, money, and fear can coexist in plain sight. For years, without consequence. The names may be buried. The case may be closed. But the system that allowed it all to happen is still very much alive. And that is the real ending of the story.